Okay. I'd like to call to order the regular Planning Commission meeting for December the 15th, 2025. I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you like to do the
Sure.
lead us in that? Well, I don't need to beat that, do I?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess we're going to do roll call now.
Ballerbuena,
Here.
Beasley Stansberry,
Present.
Maderos,
Present.
Blind,
Present.
Vice Chair Taylor. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Douglas,
Present.
White,
Present.
Chair Taylor's absent. We have a quorum.
Okay. So on the consent calendar, we have approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes by motion. Can I get a?
I will move that to go ahead and approve both the agenda for tonight's meeting, the December 15th, as well as the minutes for regular meeting November 3rd, 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Second.
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Slow down a little bit. Okay. Now for the report of the City Council Liaison.
Well, 1 second. We're just going to take a quick vote.
Oh, yes.
I need one more vote. We have 6 ayes and the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now, well, we need to, do we have a report from the City Council Liaison today?
The city council member has requested to move that to the end of the agenda. I just realized I should have mentioned that before you voted on it. He's at another meeting, so he'll try to get back here in time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Item 6 is Community Forum. This covers anyone wishing to address the commission on any matter for which another opportunity to speak is not provided on the agenda. So do we have,
Thank you, Chair. Currently, yes, we do have a member from the public who is online who would like to speak during the community forum. For any other interested members who want to speak during the community forum, we do have a terminal in the back of the council chambers where you can sign up and select whichever item you would like to speak on. In the meantime, Speaker Paul Thias, you have the floor.
Members of the Planning Commission and staff, thank you for this opportunity. I live in Vallejo and on the executive committee of the Sierra Club in Solano County, which advocates for affordable, walkable communities with jobs close to housing within existing city limits. It's encouraging to see steps taken forward in today's meeting on the Vallejo housing crisis. The 3 multifamily parcels on today's agenda take advantage of state law with by right permitting and density bonuses for added commercial use. They implement features of the housing element designed to increase the supply of affordable housing. However, I'm sure we'll all agree that these first steps are small. All 3 parcels have limited commercial potential. I'm reminded of the phrase from that old song, New York, New York. If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. But it's good that precedent is being set, and hopefully some of our larger sites with greater commercial potential can be submitted soon. Once word gets out that Vallejo is back in the affordable housing business with commercial development that adds to our tax base, we anticipate that smaller scale owners and builders will jump in. Another sign of progress was your November 24th joint study session with the City Council. Mayor Source ended the meeting by asking for draft inclusionary zoning and commercial linkage ordinances in, quote, weeks, not months. I encourage you to continue working with planning and legal staff to get these done. Thank you for considering my views.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have someone else?
Through the chair, the timer to sign up has concluded, and we have no other speakers at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we can go on to item 7. No? We got it. Item 7, continue the public hearing to consider a resolution recommending the City Council approve a tentative map, a plan development, and a development review. Do we have a presentation on that?
Thank you, Chair. So tonight, staff is asking that the Planning Commission continue this item to date certain of January 21st, 2026, which is a regular scheduled meeting on a Wednesday due to the holiday being on Monday, the 19th of January. Reason for the continuance is because we're still finalizing the conditions of approval from below flood and wastewater, and as well as from Public Works, and then also gives us additional time to respond to the comments we did receive on the subsequent mitigated negative declaration for the environmental document. So it is not a requirement to respond to the comments with the type of secret document, but staff would like to provide responses to the comments that we did receive from the public and also from outside agencies. So for that reason, we're asking for the commission to continue this item to the January 21st, 2026 date.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll go on with item B.
Before we move on to item D, we do need to take a vote from the
we need to
commission.
take a vote.
So
Okay.
Do you need a motion?
that's
Yeah,
correct.
we might need
Okay.
a motion to take a vote.
Then I will move to continue the public hearing to consider a resolution recommending the City Council approve a tentative map, TM 23-0001, Plan Development PD 24-0001, Development Review DVR 23-0017, Design Review DR 23-006, and Landscape Review LR 23-0002 for the development of 51 single-family residences, otherwise known as Vista Cove Subdivision at Shady Lane and Wildflower Avenue, APN 0079-171-170 and 0079-120-100 to January 21st, the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Badaris. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. We have a second.
I need one more vote.
Who is it?
My vote option has not come up for some reason.
What was that?
Who is it? Excuse me, but
Okay. I'm sorry. We're going to do a voice vote. So, Balbuena? No. Beasley Stansberry?
Yes.
Maderos?
Yes.
Blind?
Yes.
Douglas?
yes.
And White?
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and 1 noes, and the motion carries.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll move on to item B on the agenda, which is to hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution to amend the Vallejo Municipal Code by adding a new map to establish a by-right housing overlay district for the housing element inventory sites, number 41, 42, and 55, which we'll read out more accurately later. Is there a presentation for that? Caesar?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I would like to present to the commission tonight Hector Rojas, our second planning manager for long range. So he will be presenting the item before the planning commission tonight.
Is this on? Can you hear me? Great. If I could have the presentation up, please. So again, Cesar mentioned, my name is Hector Rojas. I'm the long-range planning manager in the Planning Development Services Department, and I am here to present to you tonight the By Right Housing Ordinance, which is a city-initiated project that would implement a pair of programs in the city's housing element. Next slide. As of earlier this morning, our staff recommendation was originally to have you, as a planning commission, recommend city council adoption of two things. The first one was the zoning text amendments that would establish a new chapter in our zoning code titled By Right Housing Overlay District, and also to adopt zoning map amendments that would apply the requirements of the overlay district to housing element sites number 41, number 42, and number 55. Next slide. So the proposed zoning text and zoning map amendments are required to implement programs A1.16 and A1.17 of the housing element. They're required by state housing law to ensure that these three sites are more likely to develop as affordable housing during the current housing element cycle, which goes between now and 2031. The zoning text and zoning map amendments are necessary for the city to remain compliant with the state housing element law. Next slide. So this slide summarizes the key provisions of the proposed by right housing overlay district. The overlay district would do the following for sites number 41, 42, and 55. It would establish a minimum density of 20 dwelling units per acre, limit development to residential only, or primarily residential mixed use when the residential component is equal to or greater than 50% of the floor area, and provide a ministerial by right approval process for affordable housing projects with at least 20% of those units being lower income units. Next slide. This slide lists some important clarifications about what the proposed ordinance does not do. The ordinance does not increase the maximum density for the sites. Their current maximum density would remain at 40 dwelling units per acre. The ordinance would also not change the underlying general plan land use designation. It would not require property owners to develop their properties, and does not approve any specific development projects. Essentially, we're setting the table for future developers to come into the city and have clear regulations about what type of streamlining is available to their projects if they have affordable housing as part of those projects. Next slide. So where are these three affected housing element sites located? These sites are located off of Broadway Street and Iflin Way for Site 41. Site 42 is, that specific address is 1295 Enterprise Street, and Site 55 is on Kathy Ellen. The next slides are aerials of each site location, starting off with site number 41. This site is located near the corner of Broadway Street and Tall Trees Drive. It's the highlighted parcel there in the yellow crosshatch. Hopefully you can make that out. The site is surrounded by a mobile home park and is just under an acre in size. The housing element site's inventory lists the capacity for this site as 31 affordable units. Next slide. Next up, we have Site 42, just north of Enterprise Street and Yolano Drive. This site is also next to a mobile home park and east of State Route 37. It's just a half an acre in size and is listed in the housing element sites inventory for approximately 17 lower income units.
Real quick, I have
Yes.
a question about that particular site. What is currently on that site?
On Site 42? It's currently vacant. There does appear on the aerial to be some structures there, but that's probably evidence of some past code enforcement that need to be done. I have it on the authority of the property owner that typically people store cars that are in disrepair, and so
Okay.
we've had a couple of code
Is it
enforcement issues.
commercial property or is it a residential?
I am coming up to that
Okay.
point, but to answer your question really quickly, it's zoned residential. It was previously commercial. So going back to Site 55, this is south of Redwood Parkway between Admiral Callahan and Kathy Ellen Drive. This is the largest of the three sites at 2.3 acres in size. The housing element sites inventory identifies this site for up to 75 affordable units. So as part of the public notification requirement for this item, staff published a hearing notice in the Times Herald, mailed the notice to all active neighborhood groups and property owners within 500 feet of each site, as well as the property owners for each site. As of today, the city has received verbal comments from 3 people, 2 of which own sites 42 and 55 separately. This slide summarizes what staff heard, but I believe each party is here tonight to provide testimony either in person or online. And just to quickly summarize the comments, we heard that the Site 42 and 55 owners are concerned that the overlay would impose a new minimum density requirement, which is true, and limits development to housing-only uses. The owner of Site 55 specifically asserted that, questioned why we need these requirements in light of the existing state law framework that we have, specifically citing Assembly Bill 130. And essentially the question was, doesn't that already provide for by-right housing approvals, which I'll get to in the next slide. And then lastly, the owner of Site 42 noted that their property was historically commercial and that the current zoning may be a mapping error. Next slide. So after speaking to the owners of the sites, specifically Site 42 and 55, staff looked into AB 130 as well as the zoning history of Site 42. We did confirm that AB 130 does not already establish a by-right housing approval process. What AB 130 actually does is streamline reviews for infill housing development, whether those projects are affordable or not. They could also be market rate, so it's more of a global streamlining specifically for CEQA. The proposed ordinance does something different. It's designed to make it more likely that the 3 sites mentioned will develop as affordable housing by requiring a minimum density and limiting development to residential or primarily residential mixed uses. Next slide. With regards to Site 42's zoning history, staff confirmed that the site's historic use was indeed a gas station, so it does have a history of commercial development. However, the site was legally rezoned in 2021 to residential, specifically residential as part of the city's citywide zoning update. And here I have the ordinance specifically that committed that action. So I'm happy to meet with the property owner and provide a copy. That would be ordinance number 1855 NC. And then this rezoning implemented the City Council's action to adopt the Propel Vallejo General Plan in 2017. So staff's determination is that the current zoning, which is residential, is correct, and that it's consistent with the general plan. So we do not believe that there is a mapping area for that reason. Next slide. So as part of the environmental review for this item, staff determined the proposed ordinance was in the scope of the environmental impact report adopted for the Vallejo Propel General Plan. The project is consistent with that because there's going to be no more severe environmental impacts than were previously studied. There's not an increase in maximum density. So therefore, no subsequent supplemental or environmental review is required. Next slide. And then lastly, I mentioned that this was originally our recommendation for tonight, was to have you recommend adoption of a resolution that would potentially adopt the proposed zoning text amendments and zoning map amendment at the City Council as a next step. However, in light of the public hearing or public comment that we heard earlier, we feel that it would be diligent to meet with those specific property owners to clarify the ordinance's intent, what the ordinance actually does, and just have an open general dialogue about what the potential impacts to their property would be. So the current recommendation would be to open the public hearing, accept public comments, and then vote to continue the public hearing on this item to a date specific, that being January 21st of next year. So that concludes our presentation. More than happy to address any questions you might have. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have one question in reference to Site 42. That was the one that was a gas station prior. Are there any concerns with contaminated ground if you're going to be putting housing units on the top?
Yeah, that's a really good question to ask. Typically, whether a site is on the housing sites inventory or not is part of our current planning process when we accept an application. Part of the application completeness includes a requirement to include the site's history. So if in the future this site were to be developed knowing the historical commercial use on the property, we would require a phase 1 environmental, which would essentially take a look at all the permitting history and indicate whether there's a potential hazardous use that operated in the past. We know that in this case there may have been. And then once we complete the phase 1, it would potentially require a phase 2 to dig in more into the site-specific conditions. It would require boring into the site at different locations that are the most likely to have gotten that potential contamination. And then there would be remediation that would potentially be required if the site continued to want to be developed for residential.
Hi. A quick question. Thank you so much for
You're
your
welcome.
presentation, Hector. Is there any reason why it wouldn't be mixed use? Is it solely restricted to residential?
So as far as the government code that's giving us this direction, it is saying essentially what we're trying to do is make these sites more likely to develop as affordable housing. Right now, the current zoning designation is residential high density, which if you look at that in our zoning code, allows a variety of uses, including residential, but also commercial. There's other uses. Essentially, there's a larger pool of uses that are currently allowed. What the state wants us to do is say, hey, since you've identified these as affordable housing sites, we want you to put requirements in place that make it more likely that those properties are going to be developed for affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of raising the minimum density from 0 to 20 dwelling units per acre, and also just putting in some streamlining provisions so that if a developer does come through and propose affordable housing, they no longer have to go through the discretionary review process, which is coming to a design review board, planning commission, potentially city council. These projects would be basically reviewed and approved at a staff level, similar to like what we do now for SB 35 streamlining requirements.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Through the chair, if I could just add one additional point of clarification. If you look at page 8 of the ordinance, it specifies that mixed-use projects, this is under subsection A, that mixed-use projects may also be allowed where the residential use occupies at least 50% of the total floor area, so there is that threshold.
Yeah, so the intent again is to make sure there's housing in there as opposed to someone reading the ordinance now and having the choice of developing additional uses that are not housing. So again, bringing in that more of certainty that there's going to be a housing, whether it's housing only or housing as part of a mixed-use project.
I have a question, Hector, through the chair. Could you give us just a little insight into the process, how these determinations were made, how these three were brought forward, and sensibly others were considered but not brought forward. A little bit about how that selection process went.
As far as selecting these particular sites?
Yeah.
Or just in general? And I'll probably kick this back to Kristen in a point, because I came on a little later in the housing element process. As you know, we adopted the housing element in December, and I came on board in September, so that process was kind of more baked by the time I came in. But typically what happens is the consultant, in this case PlaceWorks, would have taken our previous housing element sites inventory, determined whether those were, sort of keep or change sites, and then essentially identify additional sites if we found that the previous site list was insufficient to meet the new RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. So I think that that's what happened in this case. We were slightly short, because if you look at these three sites, I mean, one of them can fit, I think, 16 or 17 units, another one 31 or 32. I'd have to pull up the map again to confirm. But there's not many, so we were very slightly short. And I believe PlaceWorks looked at sort of the map of the city with the city staff and determined what potential sites were, those sites that would bring us up beyond our RHNA allocation. But yeah, those sites were already baked into the housing element when I think both our director and I came on. So I don't know, Kristen, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I can just add, the sites, all of the sites in the housing element were already chosen before I came on board as well. But of the three sites, two of them were required to be upzoned in order for us to meet the lower income RHNA obligation. And then the other site was a carryover site. I think it's a non-vacant or previous cycle site is the way the staff report characterizes it. So that is the reason why these three specific sites are being called out for this change.
Yeah, and I would add a little bit more clarification. Site 55 in particular was, it's designated a repeat site, meaning that it was already identified in a previous housing element cycle. So in order to carry it forward into this current cycle, we have to put these provisions in place per state housing law. The other two sites, as Kristen mentioned, are upzone sites. So actually all three of them are upzone sites, also required to put these provisions in place to have them in the housing element.
And so they're in there, we need to upzone them. For Site 42, some of the things that you describe about what may need to be done in case there is a development there, boring, groundwater testing, things like that. How does feasibility factor into that? Because this feels like that's a less feasible site to do this kind of development on because of the potential for environmental contaminants.
Yeah, it is a real concern, and it definitely has constraints. It's at a corner. It's right next to the freeway, so there's potential air quality and noise mitigations that would have to be brought into play. At the end of the day, it's the developer's requirement to come in and show us that they could build the housing in light of all those constraints. Having experience from being at multiple cities, sometimes even the heavily constrained sites, you'd be surprised what you're able to do, especially when the project pencils out, if there's city assistance that's involved, especially at the state level, especially for affordable housing. There's a lot of grant funding for those types of projects. So I would say, although it is constrained, it could potentially be developed under the right, housing market conditions and with the right, grants and funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one question I'd like to ask about by right. Could you kind of explain what that means? It seems like perhaps
Absolutely.
we have less approval or opportunity to comment. Is that right?
Absolutely. So by right essentially means that those development projects, when they come in, they're ministerial, meaning that they're handled at a staff level. So that doesn't mean that we just, roll out the plans and approve them and then you go off and get your building permits. It just means that when you submit it to staff, staff is the one that's conducting the review normally, like how we would do any project. The only difference is that staff handles the approval process instead of the planning commission or design review board or city council if it were to get appealed. So by right simply means that in this case, if you bring in housing It meets all the requirements of the city, all its development standards, objective design standards. We check off all those boxes, and at the end of the day, if it meets all the standards, it's ready to go. It's going to get approved. It's just a question of justifying that it meets all the requirements. So it doesn't get the benefit of a public hearing. We do have a meeting requirement as part of it, but we don't bring it to the Planning Commission or City Council for approval. That's the difference. That would be a discretionary review.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have another question. Okay, so do I understand that it does not have a public hearing process or public input process? Just for the public's information on this.
Not a public hearing in the sense that we meet before the Planning Commission or any other city-appointed body, but we would have a meeting, and I think I'll defer that to Cesar, our current planning manager. But in the law, there are requirements for developers or the city to meet with people in a neighborhood to let them know and make them aware that there's an application and, you know, essentially share those plans. But at the end of the day, the approval jurisdiction lies within staff, not the Planning Commission or City Council.
Yeah, I'd like just a little more clarification on what the public can do who might be impacted by these projects in order to get their comments to staff.
Yeah, through the chair, so from the experience that we've had with two separate projects here in the city, one along Sonoma Boulevard and another one on Fifth Street that went down this path of using the SB 35, it does require a developer-led community meeting that is done within 90 days, or I'm sorry, within 30 days when we receive an initial application. From the two that I've attended, it's been a collaborative conversation with the community and the developer, where they have taken into consideration the comments that the public has arisen while they're presenting the public and making the public aware of what's going to be developed in their, essentially in their backyard. For example, one of the projects along Sonoma Boulevard, it's an 8-story building for 100% senior affordable housing. The neighbors to the west of it brought up concerns of, now I'm going to see this huge 8-story building in my backyard. And what the developer was able to do and made it, so far they say that it's penciling out, they've been able to push back the story 2 through 8 at least an additional 20 feet from the property line in order to create that break. So it does open that opportunity for the community and anyone to comment on the project, and from most cases, the developer does take them into consideration when designing the project.
And what is the method that they would be notified? Would it be via mail? Would it be a newspaper notification, or both, or
Yeah,
something
so the
else?
notification is done through mail and is led by the developer. So we, as a city, do provide them the addresses to both the current tenants and the property owners within 500 feet. I think the last two, we bumped it up to 1,000 and provided them the mailers and all that. And one of those developers that previously they actually went knocking door to door, handed out flyers, and wanted to make sure that the community was involved from the beginning.
And through the chair, I would add too, since the recommendation has now changed to continue the public hearing, the third person that I forgot to mention that commented lives adjacent to the Kathy Ellen site 55, and the concern that she brought to light was that she owns property with a retaining wall at the backyard because the site slopes sort of from Kathy Ellen down to the next street to the west, and so her concern also is what kind of project, could I have a say? But also the retaining wall is sort of older, who would be responsible for that, and how do I bring that, to the attention of the city when that gets developed? So we're hoping to connect them with the property owner who's here tonight. But also I just wanted to say that since we're coming back, it might be good for staff to take a look at maybe adding some notification procedure onto this, not of a public hearing, but at least potentially adding a provision in there requiring notification in some sort of way, whether it's at the initial application stage, somewhere in between. So we can probably talk to our city attorney to see if we can fit that in, even though we might be constrained at the state housing law level about those notifications.
Well, and I noticed that our city council liaison is here, And if just, I mean, we all know this up here, if something goes up and there is not consequential notification to the public, our city council members will hear about it. So he's shaking his head.
Through the chair. So I did have a couple of questions, especially in concerns with 41 and 42. So kind of my understanding that essentially we trying to accommodate this or trying to kind of move it forward so we can meet the amount of affordable housing within our housing element that's required, correct? So, I mean, and I don't know any other way to do this, and to be blunt, it's nothing against anyone here, but when I'm looking at 41 and 42, and I see properties, some commercial property that was previously used for a gas station next to mobile homes, it almost seems like the city's plan is to just basically stuff as many of its poor housing element in one section, as opposed to anything really far east or southeast of Vallejo, right? Because we just put a continuing motion on a 51 housing unit project that's going to cover 21 acres, right? And so I'm looking at this section for site 41, and it's less than 1 acre, and we have established that it can squeeze in 31 units, and I'm sure that's not going to be 31 parking spots, right? So, there's going to be now an issue with the mobile housing that's already there, or any other developments that are there, as far as parking, as far as an overabundance of individuals. And, I think we've seen, there's a show called Show Me a Hero, right? And they talk about affordable housing, right? But it was about Yonkers in New York, right? If anybody's ever seen that show. But essentially, you condense an area and infiltrate that area with a specific type, then that puts that area in a condition where it can remain a ghetto continuously because of the amount of low or poverty area, right? So I live in Glen Cove, and that's fine. The city doesn't want to put any affordable housing. I guess that benefits me personally, but doesn't make it right? So I guess my question to the city is, I take a look at these three projects, especially 41 and 42. Is there anything in the next 3 to 6 months where we can say we are going to look at creating a higher density project in East Vallejo or in the East-South Vallejo area? Is there something in the works to say, we want to try to sparsel everything out as equally as possible, right? Because we don't want, it doesn't do anything for a neighborhood to have everybody that's poor in one neighborhood. There's no other way to say that, right? Poorer conditions lead to higher criminal activity. It leads to an abundance of other things that make that deteriorate that neighborhood, right? As opposed to putting affordable housing in market rate housing at a smaller level. Studies have shown that when you do that those individuals tend to uplift to meet the surrounding community they're in. So if there was a smaller affordable housing project in the middle of Glen Cove, studies have shown that the chances are that the children in those affordable housing would have test scores that would be higher, that the individuals living there would have a better chance within 10 years of going into a market rate avenue, right? As opposed to being in a higher condensed area that's already poverty stricken. So, it makes some real concerns to me, because like the evidence, the science is there, decades worth of research has shown that, right? And so I'm taking a look at this and I'm like, we're kind of repeating the same pattern, right? So especially 42, I mean, it's almost like, hey, we had a gas station there, it's closed, let's shovel up the dirt. And I work in commercial, so I work in the transportation industry, right? So I can go at length in regards to what cleanups and everything you can do to get this, and it's possible. But at the same rate, when I'm seen as just a person as a resident and not a planning commissioner or anything, it's just, oh, we had an old gas station and we're going to put 50 or 60 or 70 units on that one little area. That's what, a unit, or well, 0.9 of an acre. So it makes me want to sit back and say, okay, well, do we have anything else in the pipeline that we can say, okay, we're matching 41 and 42 with, I think we had property sites like 48 or 49 that are higher density, right, that are on the east side. Have they evaluated those? Are those moving forward with anything where they can say, okay, we've let those property owners know that this is what our plans are moving forward for those properties as well? That way, if the average resident can say, hey, okay, we are being affected, but there's 4 property sites on the other side of town that are also going to have the same level. We're all on the same playing field. So, not to
Yeah.
draw it out, but that's, do we have anything? Essentially, my question is, do we have anything on the east side or different areas, like site 48, 49, where it's going to be brought to us for the same change in development?
So to answer your question, for this specific ordinance only applies to these 3 sites because of the things that I laid out earlier about them being upzone sites and repeat sites. HCD, the Housing and Community Development Department at the state level, wants to put these on these sites because if we reuse them, they want to make sure that it's likely to develop as affordable housing, and that's why we're including them in our sites inventory, or were included. And I want to mention that these sites being upzone and repeat sites is not something that we're doing now today. These were sites that were already designated that way in the housing element that got adopted in December. So this is sort of the finish up work to what we started in December when we upzoned these sites. Essentially, our work was to come back and put these requirements into place. But to your point, as far as concentrating affordable housing in one area, you're preaching to the choir. I definitely agree with everything that you said, and I think it's a good plug for the inclusionary housing ordinance and the commercial linkage fee project that we had a study session on, I think it was November 22nd or 23rd, I forget. But this group met with the city council to give us direction, and it was a really productive meeting. So I think, part of the work for staff now is to come back with a draft. We got direction to potentially, come back with an ordinance that would do exactly what you're talking about, make it a requirement for each and every development in the city, regardless of where it is, whether it's a high resource area or low resource area. If they propose a certain number of units, a percentage of those units would be required to be affordable. And if they don't want to do affordable, they would have to pay an in lieu fee to go into a housing trust fund. So that's something that we're working on that hopefully we'll begin to bring back early next year. But hopefully Cesar could talk to a little bit more. He has better pulse on the development pipeline for existing projects. Maybe he can talk about some of those projects that you mentioned in other neighborhoods if we have that affordable project. I will note that we do have our pipeline list online on our website, so that would be a good way for people to keep a pulse on what's going on in the city, what projects are being proposed, where, what's being proposed, period. And then we could have that dialogue with our community to see how it potentially impacts them.
So, and there was a quote that the gentleman over the phone did. And again, the inclusionary meeting was the week of Thanksgiving, so I myself cannot make it because that's
Absolutely.
a heavy week for work, and I'm sure there's a lot of residents that may not have been in town. But and I go back to, again, the mayor is quoted as saying to have an update within weeks, not months, right? Whether you can or not, whether I agree with that statement or not, but our mayor said that. And what's the possibility of having something formulated to where that could be brought to the commission at the same time as this at some point early next year? Maybe we delay this past January 21st. Maybe we delay it an additional month until February, to where both can coincide at the same time, so stakeholders in the community can say, okay, I really don't like this, but the inclusionary planning that the mayor had asked for is here, and I can live with that. I can live with this because I can live with that. So, what are the chances? Where are we with that, to where we can kind of coincide those things at the same time.
Yeah, I'd like to defer this one to our director.
Can Commissioners Morris speak to your
Too many people on the line here. With regard to the status for the inclusionary zoning process, I think it's going to take us a little bit more time to get that in front of the commission. I'm going to say a couple months at least, just because we need to work with the city attorney's office closely on kind of crafting all of the components of that. So this obviously is going to be is ready, will be ready sooner. I do want to add, though, within the housing element, the sites inventory list does have sites that are kind of dispersed all over the city. So they are kind of spread out. I don't know which figure that is, and I don't think we have it handy, but I would point you to that to take a look before the next time we talk about this item.
I think it's important to remember that while we want a lot of the changes to happen, we don't have any guidelines or any policy really to adhere to yet. And while I have lived in below market, rentals myself, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody there is ghetto. So I just wanted to clear that up. And I could be ghetto to some. To some folks, they do think I'm ghetto. And that's cool. I've been called hood, ghetto, classy, bougetto, you name it, right? But the important thing is to remember is that my money's green. So no matter how ghetto I may be, I'm still paying, whether it's below market, above market, underneath the market. It doesn't mean we're all ghetto. We come from the ghetto. So I just wanted to clear that up. It's no shade. And thirdly, I think what is important to remember is sometimes you do have to take the concrete to dig it up to bring the rows out. There is a woman who is building a 240 unit apartment complex in Richmond. And it is an old, and you may know about this, Hector, it is an old carpet manufacturing, tradeway carpet. And it's full of toxins. It's full of, you can't even walk on it at this particular time because it's so full and there hasn't been no soil remediation yet. I said that to say, when you do look at affordable housing, the key word is it has to be affordable for the developer as well. It can't just only be affordable for us. It has to pencil out. And so sometimes you have to use infill. Sometimes you have to use the most undesirable area that a lot of people aren't purchasing, and you have to beautify it. That part is on us. That part is on our community. That part is on us. Infiltrating infusing mixed, that's why I asked the question about mixed use. Because sometimes, what I notice is that having a business here means that you employ people. And my business is in the ghetto. It's pretty rough, but a lot of the residents that live in the surrounding area want to work there, because what we're doing is creating what a lot of us can't do, not even myself. It's called a work-life balance, where they're walking to work. They can see the community changing over. And so I think until we get the inclusionary housing policy set, we're gonna have to fast track things. We're going to have to bypass the commission. We have to bypass city council. I mean, these are roadblocks, whether we like it or not, whether we like to admit it or not, they're roadblocks. And they have been for so many years. And it's why cities like Richmond have surpassed us by 3 and 4 times. You know that, you work there, Hector. It's why Oakland has surpassed us, and they have a huge unhoused issue. It's why Berkeley has surpassed us. It's why Piedmont we can't even touch Piedmont right now. It's why cities like El Cerrito are flourishing. In Vallejo, we are still quoting that we have potential. And until we really hunker down and look at some of the actual roadblocks that we have and say, well, you know what? We got to entrust somebody. We can't all do it. Someone has to be able to bypass the roadblocks that we have and get these projects fast-tracked because, and we're not talking about market rate, right? We're only talking about the affordable housing projects, correct?
For these specific sites, if somebody wanted to come with a market rate project, they would still be able to do that. They just would not be able to take advantage of the by right housing streamlining. Having said that, though, there are other streamlining provisions at the state level that they could take advantage of, like
Right.
SB 35.
And they would still need to come and get approval.
Correct.
Correct. So we're only talking about the very thing that we keep pushing and preaching. We need affordable housing, we need affordable housing. But a lot of that is how do we close the bottleneck, which is going through this committee, this approval, that approval. You don't have the time, and time is money for a developer. I'm not pro-developer, I'm definitely pro-housing, but we do have to streamline in order for things to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does anybody else have any more comments, though, you'd like to make? I mean, one of the things, Hector, that I was thinking about is that these sites are just a few. We have quite a few sites that we've looked at and included in the housing plan. I mean, the regional housing allotment. So how many of those sites would you say are sites that are the kinds that the commissioner's talking about that do allow allow for affordable housing, but in decent places, maybe next to other types of, a more mixed, kind of scenario?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And in fact, Site 55 is in a pretty decent area. Without confirming that it's in a higher resource area, I believe it's in that general vicinity. But as far as the rest of the sites inventory, which, by the way, is in our housing element, page 4-7, and just quickly looking through here, we have 89 of these sites. They're spread throughout the city. There's even a map here.
Yeah.
I would say all four corners of the city, if you will, have sites that are in the housing element. So our sites are not concentrated in any one, corner of the city. They're dispersed. If you look at that table, it clearly identifies what sites are more appropriate for lower, moderate, above moderate. So I would invite you to take a look at that and just get more familiarized. I know we'll bring this item back, but hopefully by the time we come back, you'll have a little bit better of a feeling that the sites are more dispersed than what we think they are now.
Okay, thank you, Hector. Does anybody else have anything?
Yes, through the chair. One more comment about that list that you're referring to. Are the districts, each of the districts pointed out in your list?
Good question. Yeah, the mapping does not have a district metric to it, although we probably could come back and sort of filter it that way. We do have the districts map, and we do have the layer for the GIS for the sites in inventory. So if that's something that you're sort of interested in seeing when we come back, we could probably prepare that for you.
I would appreciate that, because I know we've heard a lot of comment by specific districts that everything is being condensed in like 2 specific districts. So
Understood.
I think
Yeah,
that would be
and
really helpful.
understand the equity optic there.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Medeiros. Does anybody have any other comments? What about public Do we have anybody online for public comments on this matter?
Through the chair, yes, would you like to open the public hearing?
Okay, well, okay,
Through the chair.
okay, well, we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Currently, we do have 2 members of the public signed up to speak in person, and then I did see that there was a member of the public who had their hand raised earlier. If they still want to speak, just raise your hand. We'll come to them afterwards. The first speaker, Matthew Shane, please come to the podium.
Good evening, members of Planning Commission. I represent the ownership of site number 55. My family and myself have owned that for probably 20 years with the plan to develop it for housing. I'm here to speak out in objection to requiring this zoning on properties. Affordable housing is a very important thing. I think we can all agree upon that. But I don't see that this being on any property gives any sort of incentive for developers to develop the property for affordable housing. By bypassing CEQA, which it says this can, well, you can do that with AB 130 on an infill housing project of this size. So you're not getting any more benefits by putting affordable housing on this property other than forcing it upon developers to do so. You mentioned that this neighborhood might be better than some of the other ones. There still is crime, broken vehicles, homeless, things of that nature in this area. It's just, I don't see that adding more, and I have the largest one on this thing, which requires me, I'm 2.3 acres, requires 40 units or so of affordable housing if I were to do 80 units. That's half of my requirement almost. I just would like to say I stand against this, and I look forward to working with Mr. Rojas to address my comments and concerns.
Next in-person speaker is Dana Pace. Please approach the podium.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity. I live at 578 Admiral Callahan Lane, and the property that we speak of, I know Matthew quite well. He and his family has been very nice to my family. I moved there about 15 years ago, and I've seen the crime change drastically. So if I'm going to add in 40 or 50 more units or 75 more units, at 51 I think was the maximum at 2.5 acres, is that accurate? Okay. If that be the case, what are we going to do for crime? What are we going to do for policing, which doesn't happen now? What do we have, 17 cops in the whole city of Vallejo right now? Every time I look at my next door, there is some car has been broken in, someone's been assaulted. So you're adding more population to an area that's already somewhat depressed. Now I will say my property, as well as my friend's property here and the neighbors on that whole street, drive up and down the street, you'll see. My house is valued at $685,000. I got a new estimate less than a month ago. It is now diminished. It is now at $554,000 because right across the street from me, the owner owns the whole city block. Not you, but someone has allowed them to come and develop a mobile home park directly across the street from me, which has put in, I think there are a total of 17 single-family homes there. So you're just bringing an element to a community that if you look up and down Admiral Callahan Lane, there are nice homes there. And so I don't see any benefit to this. Now, I am the person with the biggest retaining wall in my backyard. I had an engineer come out and look at the cost of it, and I'm happy to show you pictures of it. We're talking about $185,000 if I have to shore up that wall. Whose responsibility is that? Who's going to pay the cost for that? Is that on me because the wall sits in my backyard? The wall from the top of the street down is holding all the dirt from Matthew's property on his side. So if you're digging in that area, what provisions or what stipulations do we have to prevent our homes from being diminished, or more importantly, the retaining wall collapsing on our properties? If that happens, my entire house is gone. My entire investment is gone. And same thing for my other neighbors that I know quite well. We all share the same thing. If I may, can I just show the members what the retaining wall looks like?
It might be better if you could email any pictures over so we could share them
So
with the
you'll
whole
send me a
group.
list of everyone on the committee today? so I
No,
can
you
do
can
that?
send it to the planning division.
I have those pictures,
I'll
so
send you some
I'm more
better
happy to
ones.
CC you when I blank copy the
Fantastic. I'll
commissioners.
send you more. Thank you for that. The other concern that I have is drainage. Through the middle of my property at 578, the neighbor's house, the drainage from Matthew's property runs directly through the middle of my property. So when I called the city, because there was a plumbing issue not long ago, I had them look into that. They said that is my responsibility. How is it my responsibility as a property owner that sits below grade and below his unit to be responsible for drainage that fills up his gully? That whole gully, when it fills up, it's coming down and it's coming to my house. The third thing I want to say is there's a spring that runs directly through all of our houses. So what happens if you dig underneath?
Ma'am, that's time. I'm sorry.
It's time.
Oh, that's it?
That's time, yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone object to one more minute?
It's to the chair. It's on the chair.
Or is that not how it works?
Not quite. You
Fantastic.
take the time.
Thank you.
That's the way it
I'll
is.
send my information to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just checking one last time, Param's iPhone, if you wanted to speak, please raise your hand one more time. Otherwise, at this point in time, Chair, I believe that might be all of our speakers.
Is that all? Do we have anyone left online? No? Okay, thank you very much. Then we will proceed.
Through the chair, you'll need to close the public. No, I'm sorry.
I need to close.
Excuse my comment.
Okay, right. So, do we need to take a vote?
So at this time, we would recommend that you leave the public hearing open and continue it to a date certain, which would be January 21st.
Okay. With that, I will recommend that we continue this item until January 21st, I believe you said, for a reconsideration at that point.
And I will second it.
So all right, do we need to vote? All right. Where's the stupid vote at? Oh, yes. Don't say stupid vote.
I need one more vote. There we go. We have 6 ayes and the motion carries.
Yes, go ahead. You have a comment?
Just through the chair, I just wanted to make sure people understood. If you want to create additional comments, please do them in writing. We usually start with the meeting with an address of any comments that were received on the issue. So even if your comments were cut off verbally, you can put in written comments and they will come to us and we will be able to address them in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blind. I guess we can move on to the next thing, which is written, is that right? To written communications. Do we have any written communications?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much.
Through the chair, our city council liaison has arrived. I don't know if you wanted to have him come up and approach and speak at this time.
I didn't understand what he said. Can you repeat that, please? I couldn't understand. Oh, yeah. Our city council representative is here. Sorry about that. Would you like to come and share some of your wonderful insight with us? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Douglas and the rest of the commissioners, staff, and the general public. Councilmember Matulak, I am the council liaison for the Planning Commission. I represent District 2. Part of my report starts off with, similar to what some of the conversations have been here, where we had our joint Planning Commission and our City Council meeting. I can't tell you all the great feedback I've gotten from that meeting, primarily from my own council members, of number one, the great input each and every one of you provided during that whole conversation that ranged everything from the housing element to tenant protections all the way up to development agreements. So that gives you the understanding of what us council members kind of think of as an overall picture of what we have to deal with on a daily basis, to where your valuable input has a valuable role in what a lot of the decisions that we make. So I highly recommend you keep your voice loud and proud. And I would even encourage you to, if you haven't already, pay close attention to some of the council city council meetings, because as you can see, a lot of the decisions we make ties to a lot of things you do as a planning commission. But one of the things that I've been pushing for a while now is the dual-pronged approach of economic development and planning commission, to where both of those commissions put together has a very strong, is part of our priority as city council. So please, if you haven't, take a look at what the Economic Development Commission is doing. Pay attention to what the city council is doing, and you'll see a lot of the things that you guys talk about here directly ties to a lot of stuff that we talk about. And then just listening to the, first and foremost, I have to apologize for throwing our agenda out of place because our mayor is unfortunately sick, and so we actually had a menorah lighting that was going on at the same time, so I needed to jump out to the menorah lighting to help represent the city for that event. So thank you for accommodating, adjusting the agenda for me to be able to speak at this point. But just listening to the conversations and some of the things that were talked about, one of the things that I would recommend is with these packets that come out, I would recommend that you guys include a glossary to that with this, because there's a lot of key terms that maybe you as experts in this field understand, but for the general public, for them to be a part of. I mean, talk about upzoning, by right, things of that nature where we may understand that, but if we want to get the general public to understand what we're doing here, I would recommend maybe throwing that in there. And one of the other things is that, and I know Vice Chair Douglas can relate to this, I recommend that if we haven't already, include links to maps, because maps are a lot of things that developers specifically look at where they have an understanding, the GIS map or things of that nature, to where that simple link will enable people to, as opposed to having the actual hard copies available, but that link will make it easy for people to understand specific plans, the zoning plan, the things of that nature, to where that can be the general background of a lot of things that we talk about. So just throwing that out there as recommendations of things to do that. But as part of my report, I just wanted to commend each and every one of the commissioners for all the great input, guidance that you guys provided at our last joint Planning Commission and City Council meeting. So that would be the end of my report. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Councilman.
Through the chair, don't forget to turn on your microphone.
Better turn on. Thank you very much, Councilman Matulio. I guess you heard that. And then the Secretary's report.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to remind the Commission that you did receive an email from our Executive Secretary regarding a special meeting that we're trying to hold on January 14th. This will be a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the Architectural Heritage Landmark Commission for an item that does require actions from both commissions. It's 823 Moran Street where they're proposing to establish an event space. This is a landmark, so there are some exterior modifications that has a purview for the Architectural Heritage Landmark Commission, and it does require a use permit that acts on by the Planning Commission. So we want to hold a special meeting with both commissions to hear the item and take action on it. So I am asking the commission now if you guys are available on January 14th at 7 p.m. This is a Wednesday. If you are available, please raise your hand. We do have a quorum from the AHLC. We're just waiting to hear back from the Planning Commission so we can schedule this item.
I think I am.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the commission. It looks like we have a quorum and we can go ahead and move forward and schedule that special item. Second, the commission should have received an email from me about the American Planning Association did hold a Planning Commissioners Academy training in Martinez. They did record it, so I did provide the link to everyone on this commission if you guys want to listen in or play it in the background. I took a hear at it. It's pretty good. Training just to kind of get your feet wet with like what the planning commissioner's duty is, and they did provide kind of a high level overview of some of the state laws, and then also thank you for those commissioners that did respond on the training opportunity that's being held by the League of California Cities, the training that's going to be held in March. So for those of you that did reach out, registration is taken care of already, so we're good on that. Other than that, that concludes my update, but I do want to say happy holidays. Hope you guys enjoy the time with your family and loved ones, and see you all next year.
Thank you very much, sir. We hope that you also and your family. Let's go on. Well, I see the city attorney's not here. Oh,
I'm
I'm
through
sorry.
the chair.
Hello.
I'm remote. I'm virtual.
Oh, hi,
Anyway,
virtual.
I have nothing. Hi. I have nothing to report.
Just being funny.
Thank you.
Would you proceed, though? Or did you say you didn't have anything? I couldn't quite hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have nothing
If
to
that is the
report.
case, then I don't have anything particularly that I want to say. How about my other commissioners, though? Got to know? Okay. Do we have a report from any ad hoc committees? That's a no. Well, I guess that gets us down to the end of the deal, right? Thank you, everyone. Does that work? Get out.